Welcome to Smash Fiction, the podcast where we pit two or more nerd icons against each other in a battle of strength or wits or... You know that thing where you're trying to steal an artifact, but it's set on a weighted trap, so you have to put another item of exact weight on the pedestal a split second after you pick up the artifact? You know what I mean. This week, Indiana Jones versus Lara Croft. It is the year 1938. Nazi-stomping archaeologist Dr. Henry Walton Jones Jr. has recuperated from his last crusade and gotten wind of a strange, unnamed island in the Sea of Japan. The local fishermen claim it only appears every 77 years for 7 hours at a time before disappearing back into the mists. Those who ventured onto the island spoke of a large cathedral-like building as eerie as it was out of place. According to the superstitious fishermen, anyone who entered the temple were never seen or heard from again. Naturally, a tale like this was like catnip to Indy, and upon hearing that the island was set to appear soon, he jumped on the next red-dotted line to the land of the rising sun. Before too long, the seasoned archaeologist stepped onto the mysterious island and made his way unimpeded to the grand building at its center. The doors were open, welcoming, as he walked through cautiously, though nothing gave him reason to step lightly. Then at the very heart of the temple, he saw a grand sword embedded in a pedestal of stone, and on the floor around the blade, an image of a triangle formed of 3 smaller triangles. After as much careful inspection as he had time for, Indiana wrapped his hand around the handle of the sword and promptly vanished out of his time and space. Now it is the year 2015. In her family manor in England, the affluent tomb raider Lara Croft leaps through some ancient Japanese texts she recently acquired at an auction. One in particular, about a vanishing island in the Sea of Japan, catches her eye. With some deep research, she discovers that the island is set to reappear soon, and takes her own plane to Godzilla's old stomping grounds. Once at the mysterious island, she takes the same steps through the Temple of Time that another great archaeologist took 77 years ago, until she, too, grabs the handle of the Master Sword, and blinks away to another place in time. Indiana Jones and Lara Croft simultaneously reappear, still in the temple, but now just outside of the inner sanctum, the sword locked away behind its large stone doors. It doesn't take them long to figure out that they're not on an island anymore, or even Earth most likely. Through deciphering the strange language and images carved into the walls, they discover their only way back to their own world is by collecting the 3 spiritual stones, located in 3 different areas in 3 different parts of this land. And that the sword will go with whomever grabs it first, leaving the other trapped here for perhaps another 77 years. Which archaeologist has the better brains, brawn, and guts to get back to their time? Hell if I know. That's why I, Kit Mulcairn, am your rambling judge for this match. Advocating for Indiana Jones are Colin Mulcairn.
In this sort of race, there's no silver medal for finishing second.
And Miles Schneiderman.
No time for Lara, Dr. Jones.
Advocating for Lara Croft are Dan Mulcairn.
Lara Croft. Why did it have to be Lara Croft?
And Liz Logan.
If my arguments don't destroy Indiana Jones, I know Lara's pointy polygons will.
To determine which team goes first, I filled a Dr. Doom piñata with red Skittles and had them find the single red M&M. Team Lara Croft was the first to find the tiny chocolate candy hidden in the sweet entrails of Piñata Doom, so they'll be going first.
Doom!
Yeah, welcome. Team Croft, you have the floor.
I love Indiana Jones. Raiders of the Lost Ark is one of my favorite movies of all time. Indy's a great character. That said, he's absolutely going to lose this one to Lara Croft. Physically speaking, Indiana Jones is reasonably strong and athletic for a college professor, but mainly seems to overcome challenges by gritting his teeth and relying on improbable luck to see him through. Lara Croft is just as lucky and has just as much determination, but is far more physically adept than Jones. She has the agility of a trapeze artist, and has been shown to be able to move through levels by swinging from objects in the environment, allowing her a significantly greater degree of vertical mobility than the much less agile and flexible Indiana Jones. Her vertical leap is ridiculously high. She's able to perform standing flips with little to no visible effort, and can climb virtually indefinitely. In Tomb Raider Legends, she goes from hanging off a cliff by her fingertips to pulling herself up into a full handstand, flipping into a standing position on top of the cliff, and not even being out of breath. She's also able to hold her breath for long periods of time and swim with both ease and speed. In fact, in the second Tomb Raider film, she encounters a shark and punches it. The shark proves its intelligence and swims away. Lara has a talent for first aid and can treat her wounds both quickly and precisely, allowing her to continue on through the dangers that Indy would have to avoid. She's also tough as nails, as during the 2013 Tomb Raider, she is impaled by a metal bar and then cauterizes the wound herself. Her ability to fight while moving and leaping is second to none. she's repeatedly seen as being able to perform incredibly precise shots in the middle of midair flips, such as in Tomb Raider Legends, when Lara leaps from the top of an armored truck, puts 4 shots into the driver through the front windshield while still in midair, and then lands perfectly in the smaller truck in front of it. While Indiana Jones made an entire movie around his adventure retrieving the Ark of the Covenant, Lara Croft discovered the same Ark off-screen and just has it in her manor. It just wasn't a big enough challenge for her to make a game around. She had bigger discoveries to make. Discoveries like the Philosopher's Stone, the Spear of Destiny, Excalibur, Mjolnir, the Hand of Midas, and Bigfoot, along with dozens and dozens of other artifacts and weird historical curiosities. Over Indy's career, he's fought Nazis, Soviets, and thuggy cultists. Lara has fought Nazis, gangsters, assassins, ghosts, zombies, demons, dinosaurs, immortals, and gods. She is much more capable of dealing with the wide variety of non-human threats that Hyrule has to throw at her, and won't panic the first time she sees a Dodongo, which Indy absolutely will.
They have legs.
She is also... Let me tell you about those Deku sprouts, which look awfully Cobra-like to me. She is also much more comfortable with magic, and has a considerable understanding of such, once using a ritual to bind the demon Vertilet. As any veteran of Ocarina of Time will tell you, learning offensive spells like Din's Fire, defensive spells like Nehru's Love, and support spells like Feore's Wind can basically change the difficulty level of the game to easy. And speaking of the world of Legend of Zelda, Lara is basically Link. She has a lifelong passion for both archery and horseback riding, and has mastered both. Like Link, she even uses trick arrows during her adventures, including rope arrows, fire arrows, and explosive arrows. The tombs that Lara raids have intricate puzzles and frequently require Lara to collect a number of items from throughout the temple in order to proceed. Basically, exactly like all 3 of the locations she and Indy will be traveling to. In the original Tomb Raider, Lara Croft competes with rival archaeologist Pierre Dupont for an artifact in a Greek temple. She proves herself not only his mental better, but manages to defeat him in a gunfight in which he is using far superior firepower. She is used to taking on other archaeologists at their own game and coming out on top. Indy had better find himself a nice house in Kakariko Village, because he's not getting back to Earth today.
To continue with some Lara Croft's amazingness, besides being really, really rich and really, really English, no matter what she puts her hands on, she is amazingly skilled with that. Take what you will with that statement. She can basically do whatever she sets her mind to. She's been all over. I mean, the fact that she's even used Mjolnir, which Thor's hammer, and if we're following anything going on in the Marvel universe right now, no one can lift that besides a motherfucking god. But she can, and she can kill everyone around her. That's the thing. Lara, she takes care of things herself. Indiana Jones, half the time, well, especially the first movie, it was pretty much all luck. How on earth did he know to close his eyes when that lid of the Ark was revealed? I don't know. Plot armor? Random saving grace? Lara, she would know exactly what to do, when to do it, and she would take care of it herself. Most of Indiana Jones' opponents, the villains, they take themselves out all by themselves. He usually has no agency in destroying them, beating them, whatever. I guess I'm just going to go into destroying Indiana Jones. This is sad. So
You're sad. Your mom's sad.
I mean, she probably would be mad at me that I'm destroying Indiana Jones. This guy has a lot of weaknesses. Like Dan said, he's a great character, but going up against someone as strong like Lara Croft, he's got no chance. The guy's afraid of snakes. What's he gonna do when he sees some crazy friggin' Zelda character? Like, oh my god, I'm afraid of a small friggin' thing I can climb away from. Here's all these other enemies. He gets captured and imprisoned a lot, and he normally doesn't escape or get back at his captors until much later, if he even is the one to take them out. Plus, in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he demonstrates basically what would happen in a fight between him and Lara in his own movie after studying his character a bit and how he reacts to women and stuff. So when he and Marion are running from some guards in the streets of Cairo, he's confronted by this huge guard with a big Shemitah. He lets the guy posture a bit, waits for some comic relief before pulling out his revolver and shooting the guy. So
he's got a big what?
Scimitar.
Shemitah, whatever.
Okay. I thought you said Shemitah.
Yeah, I did. But whatever.
Okay, just
What of
making
it,
sure.
Miles?
Nothing. I just,
Oh my god.
Is that a Zelda villain?
Okay, wait. Let me do it. Hold on. Let me do it Miles' way. Scimitar. Shemitah. Shemitah.
Oh, shots fired.
Scimitar! So anyways, switch
Getting in their head, Colin.
switch Indiana for Lara and the big guy for Indiana, and there you'll have a similar outcome to what would happen if the two of them were to meet. Indiana Jones would see this, woman in booty shorts and a tank top and think, haha, little girl, I don't know what you're doing here. Hey, you need some help, baby? And Lara would whip out her pistols and take him out. Indiana might even think she's a damsel in distress and offer to save her. And, after he loses Marion in that whole situation, he goes and gets drunk and hangs out with his monkey pal when he knows the Nazis are going to try and develop some powerful Ark of the Covenant weapon. When we are first introduced to Indiana, we don't see all of him. We see a gruff fedora-wearing, hard-boiled, assuming he's hard-boiled, archaeologist who really seems to know his shit. He passes a few trials in a temple and comes up to the golden idol. What does he do? Takes the idol and replaces it with a sandbag. What happens? All hell breaks loose. Our first complete look at him is comical and portrays him as somewhat inept. He wasn't prepared, his partner betrayed him, and there was a snake in his plane! Come on! Why is there a snake in this man's plane?
I wonder if he's tired of them.
It was the
If
pilot's.
he's tired.
Aw.
If he's tired of these motherfucking snakes on his motherfucking plane.
Can we please get an Indiana Jones reboot with Samuel L. Jackson in the title?
Yes, that needs to happen now.
And another thing is, Indiana Jones shows that he's very cocky and full of himself. For example, again in Raiders, when he and Marion are trying to escape through the airfield and he runs into this huge Nazi, and guy's got his shirt off, muscles ripping everywhere, he's got such sweet gains from the gym, he's totally and what does Indiana Jones decide to do? He punches this wall of pure muscle. I mean, the size difference is ridiculous, and he thinks he's actually going to get something done. He goes, oh, that didn't work. Whoops. And the only way he's able to get out of that fight and win it is Marion's quick thinking, jumping into the plane, and, well, the guy got torn up by propellers, and it was gross.
Yeah, he did.
That's... So what does he do? Oh, yeah, I'm gonna punch all my problems. Yep, good job. Excellent, Indiana Jones. And now, the ultimate sin. He couldn't even take one for the team and kill Hitler when he came face to face with him. What kind of person is that?
I think that was the sound of justice at the end.
I take it Team Croft is done?
We are.
All right.
Yeah,
Team
you
Indy. You have the floor.
Look, all right. If this were a contest to simply see who can break into a place and steal some stuff a la Ant-Man, Lara Croft would probably win hands down. Granted, unfortunately for Lara, this is a much more complicated scenario, one that involves cultural and archaeological understanding. And in those areas, Indiana Jones is by far Shut up!
Scimitar?
Scimitar!
By far,
Scimitar, damn it.
scimitar.
And in those areas, Indiana Jones is by far her superior. Acquiring these stones is not just a matter of climbing walls, swimming canals, and shooting things. These tasks require the ability to analyze an unfamiliar environment, move freely within alien cultures, and gather resources and assistance to complete the task at hand. In short, what's needed here is a scientist, not a Tomb Raider. Lara Croft is a loner. The traumatic experiences of her past have left her largely incapable of maintaining relationships or developing a community of people whose skills she can draw upon. Jones, on the other hand, is a natural people magnet, constantly drawing others into his tasks and forming teams to help him almost without meaning to. By the time Indy reaches even the first temple, he will likely have gathered together a group of Hyrule natives to assist him in completing his mission. Lara cannot do this and probably wouldn't even try. She's on her own. And while she might prefer it that way, it puts her at a disadvantage compared to Jones. This trait also speaks to the fact that Lara is not a natural survivalist. She is a pampered British aristocrat who goes on expeditions to pacify her boredom. Sure, she's picked up a ton of skills since that fateful plane crash that forced her into a personal paradigm shift, but this behavior is learned, not instinctive. Jones, on the other hand, has been dealing with this sort of thing since childhood. At the age of 13, He managed to steal a golden crucifix back from a group of grave robbers, and his path has been set in stone ever since. 13-year-old Indy's motivations were to give that crucifix to a museum. His early experiences drove him to learn everything he could about archaeology and become an expert on recovering artifacts. This stands in stark contrast to Lara, who was motivated primarily by thrill-seeking. As a result, Lara has the unfortunate tendency to act before she thinks, as demonstrated when she stole the amulet of Horus, inadvertently setting the evil god Set loose upon the world. That was all her fault.
That's a little bit worse than a boulder, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, a little bit. Indy, while he's usually forced into situations where he has to think on his feet, at which he tends to excel, always goes in with a plan and uses his wealth of knowledge to direct his actions. This makes him much better suited to navigating situations that involve research, reasoning, and understanding. Lara might be better at getting herself out of tough scrapes, but Jones is older, smarter, and more experienced. He's also demonstrably better at working within other cultures, something that will be required when dealing with these temples and the villages surrounding them. He speaks 27 languages and is nearly always able to suss out the true nature of ancient artifacts and the people who want to take and/or keep them. His mind works as empathetically as it does logically, which is not a trait you find in many people, period, and certainly not in Lara Croft. He can work a room full of tribal elders just as easily as he can spot secret passageways and disarm death traps. He doesn't just survive and succeed, he comprehends. And if Lara makes the mistake of coming after him, he'll just bullwhip her pistols right out of her hands.
Pretty sure he can only do one of those at a time. Also, bullets move faster than a whip, especially if he's already whipping one pistol. She's got the other pistol to shoot.
In his adventures in Hyrule, he finds the Deku whip, and now he dual wields whips. So,
boom! What?
That's pretty sick.
Man, you guys are really emphasizing the fiction part of Smash Fiction. Deku Whip. Have you played Legend of Zelda?
Before they become sticks, they're all floppy. He gets one when they're in that state.
Whoa. Family podcast.
All right, so both characters are going to be way out of their comfort zone here. So before Jones goes into the Great Deku Tree, he's going to spend some time in the Kokiri Forest, an afternoon or so with the Kokiri and ask them questions about Hyrule and about their culture. And it's at this point that he's going to pick up his first adorable sidekick, who is the self-proclaimed boss of the Kokiri, Mido. A semi-annoying little kid that is nonetheless lovable and sometimes useful. He tells Indy that the other day he was standing guard outside the Great Deku Tree, and there was a lady with a weird accent who came up to him and told him to stand aside. He told her that she couldn't go see the Great Deku Tree if she didn't have a sword and a shield, and she backhanded him and walked right on through. But he didn't have the time to tell her that there was going to be a part in the dungeon where she was going to have to hit 3 Deku Scrubs in the right order if she wanted to proceed, and that order was 2, 3, 1. 23 is number 1. So Indy and Mido headed into the tree, and Indy notices a big web in the floor, and he feels this air current rushing up from below it, the way that he notices the secret passageway in Willie's bedroom in the Temple of Doom. So her bedroom's not in the Temple of Doom. It's in the movie Temple of Doom. Anyway.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, just making sure. So he notices that it's covering a passageway in the floor that goes down to the lower level. He pulls out his lighter and he burns it away and then climbs down the vines to the lower level. It's here that he first meets Lara Croft, and when their eyes meet, the temperature of the room goes up by about 5 degrees instantly.
Yeah, it does.
So they... First thing they do is they send Mido off to the upper levels to go collect Deku nuts or something so that they can have a few moments alone. After that, they then start fighting to a relative standstill until the cold-hearted Lara Croft pulls out a gun and points it at Mido and forces Indy to solve the puzzle for her because she can't figure it out herself. He does so and opens the door, and then she cavalierly rushes into the next room to fight the Goma Queen, where she gets stuck in a web. Indy comes into the room after her, and Mido tells him, "You have to shoot it in the eye!" And so, he shoots it in the eye when its eye turns red with his gun, but since using a gun and not a slingshot, he just kills it in one shot. So it falls to the ground, and then he sees the Kokiri stone. He picks it up and tosses it up in the air, walks over to Laura and looks her in the eye while she's struggling against the webs, and he says something to probably the effect of "hang around" before leaving. So anyway, he goes through the other ones as well. On Death Mountain, he picks up his second adorable sidekick. Freudian slip.
So, this is definitely now slash fiction.
That's like the 5th Freudian slip we've had tonight.
It's just there's so much sexual tension in this episode. We can't.
I was just gonna say that.
Just kidding.
This episode is positively throbbing with sexual tension.
So
yeah, love when Liz is uncomfortable.
It's on Death Mountain that Indiana picks up his second adorable sidekick, a big, friendly, drunken Goron named, I don't know, Rock or something. So Indy and Mido and Rock make their way into Dodongo's cavern. tavern, and Indy notices that there are some weakened walls in here, the way that he noticed all the weakened walls in the Well of Souls that he knocks a statue through. So he's using bomb flowers, he makes his way through to the end, he fights, King Dodongo and kills it, and then, of course, at the last minute, Laura shows up from behind him and shoves him and Mido and Rock down into a horrible, death trap pit of some kind, and takes the 2 stones and is laughing, and and then runs away. And then they escape the death trap, of course, because teamwork, and then they go to the next dungeon for payback. Along the way, of course, Rock's stopping and eating rocks every 5 seconds, and Mido's hurling insults at him, and he's like, "Can't you two get along?" So anyway.
Can we just have this be the episode? I'm actually just enjoying this little narrative.
If that means default victory for us, then absolutely.
This whole episode is basically going to be fan fiction. I love it.
So anyway, it's in Lake Hylia that Indy meets his third companion, who's a beautiful Zora named Bulu, and she's all over him, and he's like, "Whatever, babe, I got a job to do." So they go inside So they go into the last dungeon, which is Jabu Jabu's belly, and the main danger here is just pure gross factor. They're inside of a giant fish, and there's crawly stuff all over the place, little wormy, gross things, but Indy's not phased because he dealt with a floor covered in snakes and raiders. He was a little bit afraid, but he worked his way through it. The floor covered in bugs in Temple of Doom, and a floor covered in rats in Last Crusade. It's just inevitable at some point that there's just a huge population of crawly things, like an absurd, non-sustainable population of animals.
Much like a D&D swarm.
Indeed.
All right, everyone, we talked about D&D. Take a shot.
Yeah.
And I think there was a thing with scorpions and Crystal Skull. He's used to being in, gross, disgusting, slimy places, and he works his way through it. At the end, of course, Laura rushing in and not taking time to study all the Zora texts about the horrors that lurk inside Jabu Jabu's belly, ends up captured by some other monster, and Indy steals the stones back and runs away while she's trapped inside of a giant fish as it's swimming out into the sea, and Indy's standing on the shoreline with his new buddies and waving and laughing as that wonderful theme music plays.
Awesome. All right, time for rebuttals. Team Croft, you may speak first.
I have to say that in a match of Indiana Jones versus this weird facsimile of Lara Croft that you have really unfairly characterized, yeah, Indiana Jones is obviously going to win that. Unfortunately, that's not the version of Lara Croft that you guys are dealing with. Lara Croft is an English noblewoman. She is incredibly skilled at socializing. Indy is a trouble magnet whose smallest attempts at success lead to implausible and wacky chase scenes anytime he tries to do anything. It sounds like you want this match to be Lara Croft versus Mido, because you basically acknowledged that he was the one doing all the hard thinking for Dr. Jones. The sorts of puzzles that are in Legend of Zelda are the exact sort that are in the Tomb Raider games. They don't make any actual practical sense. They're just sort of there as this weird aesthetic challenge, and Indy's going to be trying to suss that out to no avail. Also, Mido would totally die as soon as he left the forest because of the Curse of the Kokiri. Liz, did you have anything you wanted to say?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Let's go for it.
This entire situation sounds like the plot of Tomb Raider 3, when she is charged with finding an Infada stone. She has to kill a person that reaches it before her. She takes it and actually keeps it instead of losing it to some random French nemesis. And,
or dropping it down a crevice like he did the Holy Grail.
Yes. And oh, how this plot thickens. There are 3 others located around the globe. After casually fighting some dinosaurs, she finds all the other stones, kills a traitor she was working with, and she even does a similar thing in Tomb Raider Legend when she finds all the pieces of Excalibur. She'll probably know how to wield that Master Sword just fine. You talk about how Lara would have no idea what she's doing when she gets on this Legend of Zelda plane. I mean, in the first Tomb Raider movie, she went to a different time plane when she finally put together the all-seeing eye, was able to race someone else to grab the eye. She manipulated time. She would be fine. You also talk about how she doesn't know how to socialize, apparently. She has a team in both movies that she works very closely with. In fact, they live with her even in her mansion. And in the most recent game, she's on a huge expedition. She has an entire team, and she goes and saves her best friend Sam. Sorry, spoiler alert. She goes and saves her best friend Sam, who was kidnapped by the evil Yamatai. Well, I don't know if they're evil. They're not really evil. They're just ancient,
They're just
powerful,
misunderstood.
They're just like
supernatural.
quasi-Nazis, that's all.
I mean,
Wait,
they
we should
have
spend a
some-
few minutes sorting this out.
no. But anyways, she saves her friend Sam. That's a lot more to say about how she really loves the people she works with, whereas Indiana Jones can hardly keep one woman for like each movie, and then Marion came back for the fourth movie and it was weird and awkward and no one wants to stay with him. So he has no social skills. What are you talking about?
Wasn't the only thing that was thickening,
And okay, I your low blow about the amulet of Horus. Are we forgetting that Indiana Jones basically led the Nazis to the Ark of the Covenant?
Also, there's no amulet of Horus in Legend of Zelda. None of these artifacts are going to be unleashing any gods.
Well, I know. I was just saying that was an example of Laura acting before she thought and not taking the time to understand everything about her quarry before just taking it out of the tomb.
And the reason
So
that
I'm really
India's
glad Indiana Jones probably had a great plan for storing that Ark of the Covenant.
Yeah, the thing is...
he did. You guys talked
And
about
then
that.
he loses it at the end.
You talked about that
To the government.
Okay, can I speak? You talked about that being luck. The reason he knows not to look at the Ark of the Covenant is because he reads a book at the beginning that shows this light coming out of it, and he talks about it's like the light of God and it's greater than man, that kind of thing. And he reads a thing on the back of the amulet too, the amulet of Horus, Ra, whoever it was, that
Wasn't Horus.
all right, that tells him that he should not be looking at the Ark, whereas the Nazis don't bother reading that. So this seems like a little bit of a parallel between someone else who did not understand an amulet.
You know how much Indy's archaeological expertise is gonna do for him once he gets to the entrance of any one of those dungeons? Nothing. You know how much research Link has to do in this game? None! He just follows the clearly marked trails that lead straight to the next dungeon, and then it's Combat City and puzzle-solving time.
Link is a Hyrule native. He doesn't need to do as much research.
He spent his whole life in the forest. The first time he leaves is when he goes on this quest for the spiritual stones.
This whole point about Lara being bad at socializing, you mentioned that she's a blue blood aristocrat, which is true. You also mentioned that, in the prequel game, she works for the team and goes to save her best friend and all that. Blah, blah, blah. Yes, that is all true. Before the traumatic experiences that totally alter her worldview, the whole expedition, the whole thing with saving her best friend, the whole thing about being a British aristocrat, that's all pre-tomb raiding. That is all stuff that happened before. She is fundamentally psychologically damaged from having to survive for like 2 weeks out in the wilderness after a plane crash. And after that, whatever is in the movie, I understand that the movie does some different things, but the vast majority of Lara Croft's experiences as seen through the Tomb Raider games, she's alone, she doesn't have a team, she doesn't have strong connections to anyone, and she tries to do everything by herself. And
Yeah, why are you talking about Link again? Oh, I'm sorry, you're talking about Lara Croft. No, go ahead.
No, I'm done, pretty much. I mean, this all leads to her basically being captured just as often as Indiana Jones does. So
you mentioned that Indiana Jones is really cocky, but that's really not true. He's able to realize when to fight, and he knows also when to run and when to not pick fights. He pulls a gun on the guy with the sword because he knows that guy has him beat, but he doesn't pull his gun on other people because he doesn't need it, and he's trying to save his ammunition, unlike Laura, who's probably going to be shooting every, Kisi or Keese or however that's pronounced in Deku Baba that pops up around her, and she's going to be out of ammunition by the time she's done with the first dungeon.
yeah, you talk about like, oh, Mido's doing all the work for him. No, he's not doing all the work. He's helping out because Indiana Jones does that. He gathers people around him to help him with shit, people who might know more than he does about the world in which he finds himself. Lara's going to have to figure it out all on her own, and, she's smart, but she's not a scientist.
The other thing I was just going to throw out was he proves that he is able to set aside the things that he wants and focus on the mission when it's necessary to do so. When he sees Marion tied up by the Nazis in Raiders of the Lost Ark, he doesn't free her, despite the fact that will mean he's probably not going to get, sex and stuff, because he realizes that it's better for his safety and for hers for her to stay tied up, because the Nazis aren't even aware that he's broken into their camp yet. So if you talk about him being, dumb or cocky or thinking he's all that, like, that just proves that he's actually a very level-headed dude who's able to think situations through before acting.
He has extreme tactical intelligence going on here. And also, regarding the point about Dr. Jones's fear of snakes, that's not because, like, random creatures that look reptilian scare him. It's because snakes specifically scare him because of a childhood experience. He's not going to have the same issue with these other things that he has with snakes, and even if he did, he's proven to be able to overcome those fears. Indiana Jones, gentlemen and ladies, has grit. And grit cannot be replicated.
You were talking earlier about how Indy started his career much earlier than Lara did, and that's true. However, since Lara began her tomb raiding career, she has been on far more expeditions than Indy has. Lara is independently wealthy, so she can finance her expeditions. Indiana has to spend a great deal of his time teaching and dealing with the bureaucracy of a university when he would rather be riding the dotted red line around the world. This arguably makes Indy more of an everyman to, Lara Croft's 1%. But what it comes down to is that Lara has been almost constantly out and exploring and researching, giving her immensely more experience and skill than Indiana Jones has.
She's been out thrill-seeking. Let's take it easy on the researching, shall we?
Those skills are awfully transferable, sir. And you don't find out where a tomb in the middle of a jungle is without doing some research first.
In regards to this entire setup and how we're going through the Legend of Zelda world, Indiana Jones really has no experience taking down large bosses or enemies. Half the time when he actually takes someone big down, which really is just a big man, he has the help of someone else. Whereas Lara Croft takes down huge enemies. She knows how to platform, climb, if we're talking about inside the game. Indiana Jones has never demonstrated taking down anything large. The villains take themselves out. They're usually just humans. I mean, basically you could say the end boss of The Last Crusade was playing riddles with a knight that was like 500 years old. Whereas Lara Croft is taking down like huge lizard things, mutants, and zombie crusader knights. Even her enemies have to up their game in the actual media form because Lara Croft is such a badass and she needs a challenge. Indiana Jones would never be able to take on anything in the Legend of Zelda world. And plus,
Indiana Jones took down Nazis.
He fights a tank in the Last Crusade.
But he couldn't kill Hitler. He couldn't kill Hitler.
He
couldn't chop the head of the snake off.
That actually reminds me of one other thing I wanted to mention, which was your whole thing about how, how does he know the Ark of the Covenant is going to do what it does? It must just be luck. No, he knows because he knows about the Ark of the Covenant because he does research and he is intelligent. He is a scholar and a scientist and an expert at this shit.
I will have order. All right. Very good arguments, both teams. But I think I hear some thunder.
Some thunder.
Yeah.
Look at that.
What usually happens after thunder?
Oh shit! The lightning round.
Lightning round.
It's backwards lightning.
Not backwards lightning. No.
It's nega lightning. Bizarre lightning. The worst kind.
Kit, I'm just going to say I've anticipated this lightning round being some competitive erotic fan fiction, and I have some.
I have
some passages available that I'd like. Okay, no, go ahead.
Okay, all right. Well,
this has been probably the most sex-filled episode of Smash Fiction we've ever done.
The polygon shifted slightly to the right.
Oh God!
Ooh.
I'm sorry to all the parents of young children who should not be listening to this podcast anyway.
Yeah, seriously, if you're a young child listening to this, find something else to do. Go outside.
Lara Croft's hand moved toward Indiana Jones's face like a bunch of weird colored Doritos.
All right.
All right, let's move on.
Okay. Keep in mind, listeners, that our advocates have not been told this new scenario in advance. As Lara Croft followed clues through the forest toward the Great Deku Tree, suddenly a white rabbit with pink eyes went running past her. Normally, she wouldn't give the animal a second glance, but normally rabbits don't say, oh dear, I shall be late." When she spun to look at it, she found the rabbit worriedly checking its pocket watch before it took off down a large hole. Figuring the woodland critter to be a normal denizen of this strange forest, and that it might have information on the Deku Tree, Lara followed it down. The tunnel went straight on for some time, but then dipped down suddenly, and Miss Croft fell and fell and fell. Meanwhile, Indy tried to get himself back on track after some bad advice from an annoying fairy that led him astray. He dragged his feet through desert sands to a temple, and found within it a room filled with mirrors. He quickly realized the mirrors were a puzzle meant to unlock something, but as he maneuvered them into place, one mirror gave way into bright silvery mist. Indiana stumbled through the portal and found himself in a rather normal-looking late 19th century room. Normal except for the fact that on a table was a chessboard with its pieces alive and fighting each other. He reached a hand out behind him and felt that the mirror he had fallen through was solid and unpassable. It looks like Indy and Lara have gotten lost in Lewis Carroll's fever dream, the universe of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. How will our brave explorers deal with their logic-defying surroundings, and how will they best make use of what they find here for getting back to their own time, possibly having to deal with each other in the process?
All right, so Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, look, basically we all know this is all a massive Lewis Carroll drug trip, right? Like, the dude was stoned out of his mind. And Indiana Jones, I believe we can say, has some experience with that as well. He knows how to navigate the, drug-fueled mazes that can go through a sick mind like that of Lewis Carroll and encounter all this stuff. If Indiana Jones were to encounter the Queen of Hearts, there's no chance that he's losing his head, man. She's falling right for Indy like all the ladies do, all right? And furthermore, the Lewis Carroll tales involve a lot of logic puzzles, and illogic puzzles as well, but that's another story. They involve changes in size, all stuff that I believe Indy would be able to relate back to his scientific experience mixed with the drug haze to come up with a significant solution to all manner of problems here. Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, I think
I got nothing.
His time I think Indy's probably spent a fair amount of time in opium dens over the years. So I feel like
damn right he has.
I feel like he's probably had his experience with these kind of things, and when he meets the caterpillar, they're really going to hit it off. Another thing too is Indy survives the black sleep of Kali Ma, which which you're not really supposed to be able to survive, and is supposed to totally destroy your mind. And he manages to work his way through it because of his love for short round brings him through in the end.
That's right.
And so I think that he's able to navigate nightmarish landscapes like the one that his mind was going through, and he kind of bounces back from it and is not really too fazed by it by the end of it.
Also, the poem about the walrus and the carpenter, yeah, Indy's already read that. He already knows what they're talking about. He can pick up on all the clues. Yeah. He can deal with the fucking oysters. Like, he's got this shit down, man. The guy's mind is totally fit for this scenario.
He knows how a raven is like a writing desk.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Does Lara know how a raven is like a writing desk? No!
Okay, can I go?
Yes, please.
Okay, so...
End our misery.
To build on your argument about how he knew not to look at the Ark of the Covenant, Indiana Jones would get transported to this world, and he'd slap his hands over his eyes and be like, "Oh, I can't look! I'm so skeptical! I shouldn't look! Oh, I might get, my face melted! Oh no, what is this? Oh, I'm sure something will come along to free me from this! Ah!" That's what would happen. And it would just end. It would just end right there. Okay, Lara Croft.
You seem to be disparaging the good name of science, Liz. I'll have you know I take exception to this.
Okay, stop. Lara Croft has routinely been in situations where she is in planes of existence that bend time and perception itself. And again, I feel bad for referencing these movies so much, even though I love them. I don't care who hates them. In The Cradle of Life, when she is at the end game trying to find Pandora's box, her and Gerard Butler fall through a hole, pretty much. They do.
She meets actor Gerard Butler in that movie?
I don't remember his name. I don't know. He was hot in it, though. But anyways, they fall down a hole. Everything is just crazy about it. And she learns immediately how to bend Gerard Butler's perception to feel like, make him think, oh, I'm over there, but I'm actually over here. He shoots the reflection. She comes down, pounces on him, takes him out, hides Pandora's box so its horror isn't unleashed upon the world. And she does that in all the span of 5 minutes. She knows exactly what to do. It would be a perfect fit for Alice in Wonderland because it's basically this horrible, I don't know, someone was on drugs when they decided to write this scene because it was kind of bad, but still.
His first name was Lewis.
She knew exactly how to handle that situation. I mean, all Indiana Jones knows how to do is jump from one well-labeled stone to another, and he almost even messes that up when he confuses the Y and the J for Yahweh. I mean, come on! And the only way he was able to survive the Kalima is because his little kid sidekick burned him with a torch. No one's gonna be there with him. he's not going to be able to get burned by any torch. He's going to have his hands over his eyes, and he's not going to know what in the world to do.
Lara Croft has experience traveling to weird other planes. In Tomb Raider Underworld, she travels to Niflheim, which is the Norse aforementioned underworld. She has experience dealing with nobility and royalty, such as the Red Queen. Whereas, even if she does get sweet on Indy, he's going to start backpedaling very quickly and artlessly as soon as she starts putting some genuine moves on him. Let me ask you something. What sounds more Indiana Jones-ish? Actually successfully seducing someone and everything turns out fine, or doing something slightly wrong that turns into a giant chase scene with a bunch of card soldiers? And finally, and I hate to bring this up because I don't like to be ableist, but you know how Indiana Jones always wears glasses in those classroom scenes? Yeah, that's because he has astigmatism. And the first time he eats any food that tells him to, or drinks anything that tells him to, he's going to be on a different level of size from everyone else and won't be able to see anything outside of his new scale. And it's going to be awfully hard for him to return to his normal size because he has to find food or drink that is at, a different size scale from him, and it's all going to look awfully blurry to him.
Hey, man, do you have any idea how out of whack Lara's polygons are going to get in those scenarios? those things are just totally, the perspective's going to be all off.
Listen, if we were ever in a
you in the eye.
If we were ever in a situation that benefited from the non-Euclidean geometries of Lara Croft's early body, I would say that Wonderland is that place.
Points for using non-Euclidean. Anyway, I think it's time for me to retire to my chambers and really think this one over. Feel free to argue amongst each other. Remember, I like low blows. Go for it.
Nah, I'm good. I'm good on the arguing.
Oh boy,
Yeah.
You guys know how a raven is like a writing desk?
Poe wrote on both.
Poe wrote on both, and they both have inky quills.
Very good.
Yeah.
I somehow thought that joke was going to end with Indiana Jones's dead body.
That would be if you were telling it, Liz. I'm not entirely sure how fair it is putting us in a video game situation when Lara Croft already had the advantage.
Hey, we
fucking
Take
Mary
that up
Sue
with the
characters.
judge.
Mary Sue characters going up against a character whose whole point is that he's imperfect.
dude,
It's the whole point of the character.
that is actually in my notes. What makes Indiana Jones a more interesting and more fun character is the fact that he is flawed. And Lara Croft is flawed, and she is interesting, but not nearly.
How
to
is
the
she
extent.
flawed and interesting?
Yeah, in what way?
That's why they just recently rebooted her, because that's what they're trying to do now. Is
Yeah,
to
she
show
had-
her as more of a flawed character.
She had skewed way
Vulnerable.
more toward the Mary Sue end of things.
I mean, she had 7 games, where she was going. She had Thor's hammer. I mean, what?
I had 2 really cheating points that I was going to bring up if I felt like cheating.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, I want to hear him too.
So Lara Croft's pistols have infinite ammo. That's
Oh god. What the fuck ever?
Mechanics.
and 2, Lara Croft could save her game and then reload if Indiana Jones got the lead.
Yeah, no, see, yeah. I'm so
But see-
thank you for being classy enough to not bring those up in the
There
real
were,
argument.
I have my-
there were a
I have my
bunch of
stand.
Indiana Jones video games too, though. I had the Emperor's one, the one that was set in China. I liked it.
Yeah. Do a lot of swinging over ravines with a whip, if I recall correctly in that one.
I was gonna write this down, but the best part of that game was when you got into fistfights with Nazis or whoever, and your fedora would fall off if you got a hit to the face. And then he would fight without the fedora, and then you'd have to run around and grab it, and he'd be like, "Ugh," putting it back on his head. And I was like, "That's the best thing of this game." And so I always let him get hit punches. There goes his fedora, and I'm like, "Oh, put it on." Oh, so suave. Oh.
If you tried to move on without it, did you get the BioWare message of you must gather your party before venturing forth?
All right, I have returned. I hope you guys really.
Hi, kid.
We talked about writing desks a bit. That was fun.
Yeah, and ravens too.
Oh, ravens.
Yeah,
All right, points for ravens.
and indeed the similarities between them.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, I feel a little torn about this one. I think it was an easier pick, but I still feel really torn because some really, really good arguments were made. Some really entertaining arguments, I should say.
Not good.
I'm going to have to say Lara Croft would get the stones first.
Yes.
Fair enough.
I think that after Lara successfully escapes back successfully escapes back to Earth, Indy's just going to now have a new life on Hyrule, traveling around to all of those temples and seducing all of the beautiful, multicolored women of
I
Hyrule.
would play the hell out of that game.
I really enjoyed the good indie stories there.
Yeah.
It really added to the already like the fucking fanfic that I wrote for this. And I did not expect so much Slash to get into my fanfic, you freaks.
Yes, you did. Don't lie.
I mean, okay, I used to read a lot of Slash
also-
fiction when I was little. I have regular porn now, so it's fine.
Oh my
Just about
god.
to say.
I'm an adult. Okay. Thank you everyone for listening. Next week's episode, Gargoyles versus the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Smash Fiction is produced by Miles Schneiderman, with logo design by Colin Mulcairn.
Special thanks to Kevin MacLeod of the Clan MacLeod for our theme song, which is called Hitman. You can find his works at www.incompetech.com.
You can follow Smash Fiction on Facebook at facebook.com/smashfictionpodcast and on Twitter at smashficpodcast.
Find us on iTunes, and if you leave us a good review, we shall become more powerful than you could possibly imagine.
If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other contributions, send them to us at smashfictionpodcast@gmail.com and help us continue the fight.
I was hoping Indiana would make some kind of flamingo argument, but I don't know.
Yeah, with all his experience with flamingos.
That's right. Oh,
well,
he has
they're
tremendous
the
flamingo
anti-snakes,
experience.
Dan.
Wait, explain this.
No time, anyway.